Today is about communication. Communication a little bit out of, if you look at our strategy and our action plan, we have for consecutive years written in that we need to look at communication a little bit closer and what we need to do and want to do here at the department. And obviously, as we are still talking about it, it's an ongoing task, and second, it hasn't been the most prioritized task up to now. But it's slowly moving up on let's say, the agenda of what we need to look at. And I also believe that we have been moving towards a resource setting where we can do a little bit more or a little different than we used to do. So the day today is about discussing the broad area of communication. And will be structured basically in three parts. First we have Jakob, I'll say a word in a second, who will come in and give what I'll call an inspirational talk, open up the space a little bit. After that I will take you down to earth a little bit and talk a little bit about what we think we need to look at. And after then we'll wrap up the day with a little group work where you can put up your ideas, validate, change, and inspire. So that's kind of the day of today. Now we have 1 hour, approximately 1 hour for Jakob. You will present yourself in a second. I really don't know very much about you. I just know that you worked for KU for some time back. But I fully trust Jesper, who has established the contact here, that you will be the inspirational talk at the very beginning. So thanks for being here.
Hopefully.
And please, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. And I'm very pleased to be here. Honored to talk with you about this topic, which I've been working with for the last 15 years, I think. Different universities. I started here at the DTU. I didn't study here at DTU, but my first campaign was for DTU in the year 2000, I think. And I hope that I will inspire you. But before I start inspiring you on research, communication, and dissemination, how many of you think that it is important to do more than you already do? All right. Okay. Everyone. Okay. That's nice.
You should ask now who's going to pay for it.
Yeah. Okay. So who's going to pay for it?
And I was basically going back.
Okay. And are you willing to invest in communication and dissemination?
The funny thing is, all money is distributed already.
Okay.
But we also have like time and effort to invest in communication.
Yeah.
We still do more there. So.
Okay. Okay. So you can do more, or you can do it differently. I hope that I will come up with some points. I don't have like a face it, the real way to do it, but I will bring up some perspectives and an extreme case on how you can communicate strategically. In a few seconds, I would just tell you a little bit about my background within research communications. I will give you some different perspectives on dissemination. I think basically that there are two different ways of dissemination: the altruistic and the strategic. I think that most researchers nowadays think of communications and dissemination in the altruistic way. And I think that in the future, more people, more researchers will do it strategically. So that's what I'm going to present basically on a recipe on how you can do it. So how can you plan your communication strategically? And I will give you a case or a couple of cases. And one of them is what I would call an extreme case, where we did everything strategically. So you can judge it that way. And then in the end, if we have the time to it, I have some questions that you could look at on how to get started with it. Is that all right with that agenda? Okay. So who do we work for? It's right that Søren said that I was working for KU. It's 3 years now that I stopped working for KU. Before that, I worked for KVL. And in Strategize, we've been working for the Engineering Society of Denmark, DTU. Some of the people from the food department, the biggest university in Norway, the biggest university in Belgium, University of Copenhagen, CBS, and we've been helping them with different issues. And the last one, Cambridge Copenhagen Academy for Medical Education and Simulation, is a department which is about to start, so we're helping them as well. And what we do when we help universities and departments and research leaders as you is that we are clarifying burning platforms, strengths and possibilities, strategizing directions and meaningful, suitable stories. So how can you tell yourself if you should have a key message or a key corporate story? What should it be? What would be the most favorable themes and issues that you as a department could set on the agenda, the public agenda, and how can you do it? What would be the right position to take in relation to stakeholders and industry and politicians, so on? Recruiting people, could be students nationally or internationally, and employees. Engaging current employees, students and stakeholders, and fundraising money to buildings and research and study environments. So it's strategic communications which is used for many purposes. And what we do is that we make analysis and strategies, workshops and conferences, PR and not press releases, but press relations, social media strategies, branding and marketing, design and visual identity, communication campaigns, blah, 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 written materials, photos, films, blah, blah, blah. That's what we do. So working with a great area, or a lot of things within this area. Okay. So now to the topic, research dissemination versus strategic communications. The classical research disseminations, it didn't surprise me that you started, Søren, by saying that we have had it on the agenda for many years, but we haven't prioritized it a lot. That is basically what I hear everywhere I come. That researchers want to communicate and they want to disseminate their research, but it's something that they do when they have the time to do it. A question to you, when do you do dissemination? Do you do it after the research project or during the research project, or when do you do it? Jesper?
I can start by saying that DTU, in general, there is a tendency and then also almost a rule that disseminating any scientific work is when you're done.
Yeah. And I would say that is the classical research dissemination. You're funding money for the research project, or you're getting an idea for the research project, you're funding money, you're getting the money, you're making the research project, you're making a scientific article, and then when it's ready to be published, then you can start communicate. Isn't that basically what you all do?
I think there's a bit more variety.
Yeah. There's a bit more
variety.
Yeah.
Because you also do workshops with companies, for example.
Yeah.
That might be one way of communicating.
Yeah.
You may write a news site and you may be interviewed by the media.
Yeah.
So it depends a little on what kind of dissemination.
Yeah.
It also depends very much whether you're working with industry. In several of the industrial EU supported industrial projects I've been working with, we have made actually the SAGE brochure during the project.
Yeah.
So we work towards that.
Okay. So you have already started the transformation from what I would call a classic research dissemination to strategic communications within research. I will give it a few more words in a minute. But this way of planning research dissemination is also, if you go down to like a single day, I've been talking with a lot of researchers about it, and I have been asking them, when do you prioritize to do the dissemination? And a lot of them have told me that in the beginning of the day, they would do paperwork, administration, education, research, and if they have the time by the end of the day, then they will do dissemination. So it's something that they do at 10 o'clock in the evening, or when they have done all the need to do things. Okay.
I think it depends also on what we understand by dissemination, because I mean, if you're called by the radio for an interview about whatever, something that they have running, I mean, then of course it could be in the morning. And so I think what you're thinking of here is, when do you sit down and write a popular article or something like that you want to go into the media? Or so I mean, that dissemination is, in that sense, is many things. If we're talking dissemination to stakeholders outside.
Yeah. And that it's often non-prioritized. It should maybe more be that it's not non-prioritized, but it's not as prioritized as research and education and so on. I think there are some quite good reasons to disseminate research, what I would say altruistic. It could be to get your knowledge spread to the public. If you believe that your research-based knowledge could be really important to others, then it could be a good idea to spread it to the public. To thank the taxpayers, they're paying for the research, so it should be fair that they know what the money is spent on. To improve decision making. A lot of decisions are made without the proper knowledge within a given field. You can, as researchers and as research groups, give the right knowledge so that they will improve the decision making. To raise the level of critical thinking throughout the society. I think a lot of people can benefit from knowing that there are different perspectives on the same issue. I heard a story that a friend of mine, he asked me, why don't we just put together the researchers and they could come up with the right solution? That would be much more easy. Which was, of course, the wrong perspective on research. As if you put together some researchers, they will often have quite different perspectives on the same issue. I guess that's true with you as well. And to help researchers from other scientific fields getting in dialogue with others could open their eyes for new ideas or inspire new research for them. So that would be 5 reasons to disseminate. I think if you only look at these reasons, they're quite altruistic. You're not getting anything in return, or that's not the main reason that you're doing it. And that's why there is this other view on strategic communications or dissemination, which I would call strategic research communications. That is basically managed by objectives. You have some goals with your communications, which is more than you just want to inform some people. You want to achieve something by communicating. If you do that, then there will often be given a priority equivalent to research and education, because it helps you to achieve the strategic goals. So I think that if you will take this strategic communications view, then it would be quite easy for Søren to say in a couple of years that now you are prioritizing it a lot because it's important to your research, it's important to your funding, it's important to education. And it would often be planned while you plan your research, education, and development. So if we look at this model, it would be around here that you have an idea and you will start planning the communication already at that time. Does that make any sense, that it's possible to do that? Yeah? There was one who was nodding. Thank you.
Well, in research proposals, you actually have dissemination strategies
Yeah.
already there,
Yeah,
so it's necessary.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But there's probably not all proposals have, equally elaborate dissemination strategies.
No, and a lot say that they will make a homepage and they will make press releases when they have finished the research, and they will make a conference afterwards and blah, blah, blah. So basically, the communication strategy within many proposals are that they will disseminate the research results afterwards. Not everybody, but I think a lot.
I guess many of us are dragged around presenting research from ministries and all kinds of funding organizations and things like that. And it's not necessarily planned, it's just when they need it. And so
Yeah.
on. And that's not a part of a planned presentation and project, but it definitely is strategic because that makes us more visible.
Yeah.
And also
But-
maybe lead to some funding.
But is it when they need it and ask for it, or is it when you like push it and
Both, but often when they need it.
yeah? In the strategic communications view, you will be the one who is planning when they will need it. So it's slightly different than just being ready to answer questions when they are raised. But I think you're probably already doing it sometimes, but not every day. And that's my suggestion, that you could do it a bit more than you do today, without knowing you. Great. So how can you practice it? How can you plan your communication strategically? I think there are 3 elements. First, you analyze and create clarity about the landscape you find yourself in. Then you define the business strategic goals, and then you prioritize the necessary resources. I'll just elaborate a little bit about that. So if you analyze and create clarity about the landscape you're in, an example of that could be that we, as a department, are going to fight an intense battle for public attention, interest, and prioritization during the years to come. Would that be right, Søren? Would that be... this department seminar about communication and dissemination is not the only one held in Denmark right now. So a lot of research groups and departments and faculties, universities are very much into this. How can we communicate better and more strategically? As a new institute, we're not very well known in large parts of the population. I don't know how new you are.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, but it's the second part is certainly true. We're not known.
No. And you have had some mergers, haven't you? And yeah.
So you could also claim that we've been part of DTU from the early beginnings in 1800 something.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the current configuration, it's 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So.
And I think some people would believe that if they were looking for researchers like you, then they would go to CBS or...
wouldn't find it there, but they would go there.
Yeah. Some people. And there are others who are quite aware that you are here and that you're doing a great job. But I think there could be a potential of being more known. On the education market, there is an increased competition for students and researchers, both nationally and internationally. I guess that you agree on that, both as an institution, as a DTU, and also as a department. Mergers and changes have made it a major challenge to retain and engage many good employees. I don't know if that's true for you, but somewhere it is true, especially at Aarhus University. Made some, and I also made some projects with the University of Roskilde, and it has been like quite a challenge for them to retain and to engage their good employees. We might receive fewer basic funding and to compete more for a larger share of the budget. 30 years ago, a university shouldn't really compete for anything. It was given the amount of money that you could work with. And now you have to compete with other universities, and not only nationally, also internationally. And you have to compete with sometimes companies, private companies, bureaus, and so on. And we need to know what works and how it works, so we use Oscar's communication resources, probably. Jesper is probably the expert on that, but when you plan your communication in a proposal, when you're describing what you will do, you will probably be interested in doing what will have the greatest effect. And how do you know what will have the greatest effect? Do you all know that? What is the best social media, or a press release, or getting in the radio, or making a seminar for high school pupils? Or it can be hard to tell. But that's also an important issue. I don't know if that is the right analysis for where you are. It's just a guess, and it could be the analysis. But if that was the analysis and the clarity about the landscape that you were in, then the business strategic goals could be that the communications should support agenda setting, positioning, recruitment, engagement or commitment, fundraising, and the last one is not coming up, would be learning. So how can we learn from what we're doing all the time? So that is to say that the reason, if you are communicating strategically your research, that's the reasons that you are communicating. So it's not just to get out with a message. It's not just to enlighten the public. It's also to help the institution, to help your research group doing this. Does that make any sense? All right.
It can appear quite raw.
Yeah. For a research group.
For any given resource setting, it just say what you could do, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
each of the individual issues you could stretch far or not so far.
Yeah. I think that what you should do, you should of course make the analysis more precise and for the department. So if it's about agenda setting, then you would be much more precise and asking which agendas would we benefit from if they were like clearer in the society. So would it be sustainability? If that agenda was much more on the public agenda, would it be in our favor? And if it was sustainability, it could also be the sustainability and together with something technical, or how you can engineer sustainability or sustainable engineering, or but I don't know what exactly would be the right.
Very the case for us, because as for sustainability, I don't think we can really move that agenda up or down. It's just it has the level of interest that is controlled probably by others than us. But as for what is important to focus on to achieve sustainability in the near future, we have some quite good suggestions to what should be done, and this is something that we could put on the agenda.
Yeah, and that could maybe be, again, I'm not an expert on you, but that could be how to measure sustainability, for example, and that it is important all the time to measure sustainability and to be quite exact on what you talk about when you talk about sustainability. That could be an agenda that you wanted to make. Could be.
Yeah, I'm Michael's not a eating expert.
Okay.
This, so.
It could be something else as well, and it could be that you as a department would have like 1 or 2 or 3 agendas that you would agree on, that it would be quite important for you together, all research groups, all 200 and some employees, that they would work together on making these agendas and strengthen these agendas. The positioning could be which institutions should we have a position or a more clear position if they look at us. How should we be positioned different than we are today? Recruitment, are there any specific students that we want to recruit? Are there any specific employees that we want to recruit? Are they coming from particular universities? Do we need some people from the industry? Or so there are much more questions and analysis below those headers. Does that make sense, Søren? So they are broad here, but you can make them more narrow. All right. So what you need to do when you start when you have a research project and you will make the strategic way, you need to prioritize the resources. And how much would you say that would be fair? How big a percentage would be fair to prioritize on communication and dissemination? It depends. Yeah. So is it like nothing, or 50%, or 10%? Okay.
I don't think you can give a percentage, right? It's an investment rationale behind that. So you have to weight it against the alternative opportunities.
Yeah.
So and then with respect to the return.
Yeah.
So you're sure if we would put 30% more resources into communication, but increase our funding by 100%, then probably well spent.
Okay.
But we don't know.
But we don't know. So we have to start there, and then you start adjusting.
Yeah.
Try a little bit more, try a little bit less. If a little bit more, and you get some more returns when you do the right thing.
So some activities have natural attention from politicians and others don't have natural attention. So it also depends on which kind of project you are in and who are your collaborating partners and so on. Because there could be a lot of natural kind of dissemination of information and also the results of depending on the receiver.
Yeah. I think NASA, they're spending about 5%. Every time they're making a research project, they will spend 5% on dissemination and communications. So and 10% could. It depends whether 10% or 1% or it depends on the project.
I think the curve is very steep in the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
which means what?
you mean if you spend, 0.5%, it's too little, and if you go to 3%, you have an enormous effect out of those 3%.
Yeah.
If you go from 5 to 10,
That's probably right.
I think most of us are probably not at an optimal place on that curve.
Yeah. So right now, where would you think you are when you make like a research proposal? How much would be on communications? How many percent? Is it the 0.5% than the 10%, or is it more the 10% and you just have to stay tuned and continue?
What you include in dissemination, you also include layout, print, and stuff like that?
Could be, yeah. If it's not for researchers, if it's for all the other target groups. 2%, okay.
Sometimes we also use central resources on dissemination. So part of the overhead that we get from activities are channeled into central resources.
And they will.
So there's a centralization of outreach and dissemination, which then are used on the different projects depending on needs.
Okay.
I think a classical research project, it really, Innovationsfond, whatever, DFF, then 2% already is quite a lot. At least if you look at financial resources. If you look at time, maybe a little bit more, but real money from the research budget, I doubt we put more than 2 into it.
So if you get 10 million, you would not spend more than 200,000 usually on dissemination and communications. Okay? No?
Well, what do you think of it? I don't think so.
The example that I will show you now is an extreme example of strategic communications within research, I would say. And you can judge whether it is a good example or a bad example. But it's extreme in that way that the spending was 5%, and it was planned for. It was a research project which lasted for 5 years, and the communication activities were planned in the beginning. A lot of them were planned in the beginning. And there was spent the 5% and with small here and a seat at the table. So I was as responsible for the communication. I was at the table with the research leaders, not planning the research, but observing and communicating and trying to understand what they were doing from the beginning. And what we did in this project, it was about it was called New Nordic Diet, Ny Nordisk Hverdagsmad in Danish. And what we did was that we established a burning platform which would appeal, or it should appeal, to a lot of people. So at the first press conference, we showed this picture, and you might think that it's just an ordinary man. It's actually Prince Henrik. When he was more thin than he is today, and the burning platform was not Prince Henrik. That was just a fun curiosity. But the burning platform was that 47% of the Danes are overweight. So that was the starting point of the project, a burning platform. Somebody had to do something. Because the increasing numbers of people with lifestyle diseases, a lower quality of life, increased stigma, worse economy, both for the people who are overweight and for the society as a whole. So that was a burning platform we started with. Then we had to create a compelling vision, something that would engage people and that they would be a part of. And the vision that we made was could we engage Danes to create a healthy, tasty and sustainable food culture based on Nordic ingredients? Would that be possible? That was the vision at that time. And at the same time, we made a vision which would be like something that we want to put on the agenda. We wanted Danes to know the new Nordic diet and to taste the new Nordic diet and create the new Nordic diet. So if it was how to measure sustainability, then it would be we want to know Danes, we want that Danes should know how to measure sustainability, then they should actually measure sustainability themselves and get some results out of it. That would be the equivalent. Engage key players. Within this whole field of, not just of research, but within this whole field of healthiness and food industry, education and so on, we invited all key stakeholders to be ambassadors and to be role models. Here we have a princess and an author, a chef. And we also wanted to engage key stakeholders to ensure accessibility. If we wanted to make a new Nordic diet, and if we wanted everybody to taste it and make it themselves, then it should be possible to buy it in the supermarkets. So we started having a dialogue in the beginning of the research project on could they have these Danish ingredients or Nordic ingredients, could they have them in the supermarkets?
How did you engage these key stakeholders? Because the persons that you are mentioning here, they're not cheap.
No.
So were they paid for
no.
being part of it, or were they part of the project from the beginning?
No,
or?
They were invited. It was quite much the vision that was the turning point that could make them into the project. They were not paid for it, but they were asked, would you, together with us and a lot of researchers, would you be part of this project where we would engage Danes to do something? So it was an invitation, would you like to change the society with us? Would you like to make a better world with us? It wasn't an invitation saying that we are very clever researchers, we have all the answers, you just have to pay for them and be an ambassador. It was more, would you be part of a project where we could change something and do something good?
So it was for a greater cause.
Yeah.
So they were doing it altruistically, but maybe also strategically.
I think also strategically, because they knew that they would be known for a good case as well. So I think when a princess wants to be part of it, then it's because it will make her look good or look better than if she didn't participate in the project.
Also, father-in-law was at the initial picture, so
Maybe that helped.
Yeah, maybe. So will you change your father-in-law? Yeah. Will you help him?
She's competing with other princesses to look good.
Yeah. So I think it was part of being altruistic, but also they also had a stake in it, something that they wanted to achieve. That was one of the results that Coop extended their assortment. And of course, we also asked people to be ambassadors in supermarkets to get involved in this, who didn't want to participate, who didn't have the time, or who didn't want to be a part of this project. But so the people that I was showing you, they were the one who ended up being part of the project. But we also asked the prince and the queen and so on, if you understand what I mean. Okay. So we had engaged some key players, and then we wanted to involve target groups. And the target groups here would be young people, because we wanted to change a food culture, and we wanted to get more young people getting interested in the study programs within the field of food. So what we did was, among other things, to involve high school students through seminars, tutorials, and training. It was a seminar with a minister, and we made a camp, like a 24 hours camp with students. They came in and they should develop new ideas for how can we change this food culture among young people. And we involved them in how they could make the food. This was a book used in the education in high school, which was, I think it was made in 10,000 copies. And altogether in the 5 years we had about 15,000 high school students involved in the project. We also made called it a mass experiment. It was from the primary school in Denmark all over. All the blue spots are where it was. And we succeeded in engaging 25,000 school children, or 1,100 classes. And they were like, they should work with the food for one day and answering questionnaires about how they were eating and what their preferences was, and so on. Made a homepage where called the Idea Pod, or Idégryden in Danish, which was a user-generated innovation. We asked people to come up with ideas which would improve the food culture. It could be recipes, but it could also be ways of eating. So again, if it could be within sustainability, you could make this idea pod and come up with sustainable ideas and how you could work with it. Jesper?
I'm thinking you probably wouldn't have done a web page today, you probably would have done ads instead. It seems for the whole project being so less traditional, so focus on target groups. A web page seems a bit too non-specific and not targeted.
Yeah. Or at least we would have done a web page which was more on the cell phone and not on the computer. And we succeeded in having 675 members uploading recipes and other ideas. And this was quite a fun thing, because LOF, on their own initiative, made 90 cooking schools. So, as a result of the invitation, would you be part of this project? Some started to make things by themselves, which supported the whole idea of the project. So, again, if it was a conference on sustainability, and you invited a lot of people on this topic, then you could maybe spread the word or get other actors to do something about it. Let the target define the media. You said it already, Jesper, that you shouldn't necessarily use a web page. It could also be an app. In this case, it was quite obvious to make a cookbook. In other research communications, that wouldn't be that obvious. But there were sold 50,000 altogether. Skip control. In the beginning, we made this plan, but we were also quite open if there were a journalist calling in the morning from the radio and would you give an interview, or if there was a a department asking for some help with doing something, or if somebody wanted to join the project. So we didn't think that it was possible to control the whole project. And an example of that was that there were a lot of cultural events, and that we didn't know when we started the project that they would come up, but as they came up, we were a part of it. Use what is obvious, but also think out of the box. We also used traditional media, but in the whole period of time, we didn't do many press releases. So it wasn't press releases or traditional research news that made this on the agenda. It was much more untraditional, most of what we did.
But yeah, to what extent is what you communicate actually research results? Because I mean, a lot of this sounds like, well, okay, I mean, New Nordic cuisine, I think, was there already. So I guess there must have been some research. I know I have a colleague who worked on the sustainability of the New Nordic diet. So that was a research result, I guess. And there must have been others more nutritional, perhaps, or obesity or whatever. But what you mentioned here seems very much, like propagating the idea of the New Nordic kitchen, of local ingredients, which I guess was not really based on the research.
All the research results were for example, in the newspapers or in the television programs. They were also when we made materials for high schools, and it was filled up with results from the research. But it was also like a platform for researchers to communicate what they knew about this field of research. So if you know somebody who were on that project, it would also be a platform for her to communicate about it, about what she knew before she went on that project. So it wasn't solely results of that project that she was communicating about. It was her whole research-based knowledge that she could come out with. Yes,
but I think, as I remember it, that quite often, as a spin on this, you have these short news and radio news, for example, saying that we now know that beets grown locally this is a thought example, has more, it's better nutritionally or healthy or make it thinner. This is the new result due to the work of the New York diet. So as I remember it, that's the actual, let's say, hardcore scientific dissemination to a broader audience came in as lines between a lot of things.
But still, the main part of, or the main project here was to doing research. So as 5% was spent on communications and dissemination, 95% was spent on research. So I'm just telling you about all the communications at the project. There were lots of articles and books and conferences and so on, also within the scientific environment.
Could I maybe add, because you started really out saying coming from the objectives, and so communicating the research results in terms of
and the research
the results of the research in terms of what impacted, what value did it create for the given recipient, society in this case here. Then I think that is achieved in this year. You could say. Regardless of how much real research, I'm also, I've obviously I've been in the project, so I have no clue how much you could develop the outreach without doing any research at all. I mean, you could claim a little bit to say, well, maybe it's just a big communication campaign and it just hit a good topic which people felt because people don't want to be fat, so it's obvious. It's, you know, but maybe there, my hypothesis would be there must be some research behind this, and at least they you know, they got out and created some impact in society based on their research. They couldn't have been doing this without having research. Then I think it's a valid result from the objective. I was just wondering a little bit whether there were other objectives into that. I mean, for example, did that result in that they then doubled their funding after the initial funding because they got the visibility?
Yeah.
Did they, you know, earn much more money because they all now paid as private consultants to co-op or whatever? I mean, there must be a lot of objectives behind that. And what was kind of the return on that?
Yeah.
I think that's the relevant question to say. Well, is it
of course
valid payoff?
Yeah. And there were a lot of other results. I don't have all the numbers, but they achieved, or they were getting more students attending their study programs, and they get more funding afterwards. They started to cooperate with the industry that they didn't know about before. So and they got researchers from other countries coming to the departments to being part of this study and also being part of other studies because they raised the awareness of the department and the institute. But I don't have all the numbers on exactly how many more students they got and exactly how many more fundings they got. But some result, it made some results. 12 programs on national TV. And this was, like a big truck that went around in the country. A research truck, but quite cool also for small children. And the supermarket, which made it visible. All right, so and exactly what you say, Søren, measure the effect, not just the communication. And some of the effects here were that 3 years after we started, the word or the sentence "ny nordisk hverdagsmad" didn't exist. In 2012, we saw that 1.5 million Danes knew about it. 300,000 said that they had tasted it, and 250,000 said that they had made it themselves. So within 3 years, it was possible to set an agenda, get a lot of people involved in it, and also move something. So it's an extreme case, I know that, but I also think it could inspire a way of thinking or a way of viewing your own research project or the way that the department communicate. Great, and then so and they will keep going afterwards and still communicating with all those people that they had involved in the project. And have a renewed dialogue with funds, municipalities and other partners. And also got new ideas for new research, which is quite important, I think.
How was this funded, this project? Who funded it? How was it? Who was the initiator?
The Nordea Foundation.
Okay.
And it was actually the Nordea Foundation who asked for if we could come up with something really ambitious. That was the beginning of the project, and it could be within all kind of areas. Okay. And that started a process of what could we come up with that would be very interesting, that would change society, that could do something interesting. And then it was there was made this whole proposal, and it was peer reviewed and everything. So it was quite like what you do every time you do a scientific proposal, but it was also different in some ways. Another example, just something completely different, is an application we made for iPhones, which was the Garden of Secret Sciences. The idea was here to how could we use new medias and social medias to get stories told about science. So we made these QR codes at the campus of Frederiksberg, and you could walk around in the gardens, and when you found a QR code, do you all know what a QR code is? Yeah? When you found a QR code, you could just put your phone on it, and you would see a short movie about a specific kind of research. And that was what we made, this application and a physical presence in the city. But we also made like a branding campaign to get more people to know about it. So we gave small plants, and we stopped people on their way to job. Made it visible in the city that they have this project. So that's just another way of communicating your research. You could take like a square in Copenhagen, or it could be in the airport, or somewhere where all the managers of the greatest companies in Denmark are. You could try and make research visible there. And this is something that we did earlier this year for the Department of Health and Medical Sciences at University of Copenhagen, which is quite a traditional publication, but it is 10 articles about the newest research from the department, and it was sent to, I think, 2,000 high school teachers, and after it was sent to them, and we asked them if they would use it in the education. They were like asking us if we could send more to them. So it was quite a popular way to get our research to the high schools. And the whole idea with this was also to get more students. So not just disseminating research to solely to disseminate it, but also to get more students out of it. Great. So how to get started? I think I've spent my time, but I would just sum up and say that what I think is a good idea to do is to make an analysis and create clarity about the landscape you're in. What are the main topics? What are the agendas that would be nice for you to take? Which positions would you make? Who should you recruit, and so on? Define the business strategic goals. What would be the most important for you to do? And prioritize the necessary resources. The communications effort are what I said before. Yeah, the 10 main points. And then some questions that you could ask yourself here at the management team or in each division and center at the department. What are the most important challenges and opportunities that you will be facing in the coming years? And why are they so key to you? What is at stake? How much potential does it offer? And in other words, how many resources would it be worth investing in it? Which of the activities currently being performed is making the biggest difference? Is it when we make a homepage or a press release, or is it when we do a conference or something else? How's the current return on investment? Could you do something that would have a greater impact? Could you test ideas as minimum viable products? So you don't have to spend like $1 million on it, but try it out in smaller scale and see if it's worth it and if it will have an effect. Who would be the key players in terms of making a success of these ideas? Is it Jesper, or is it Jesper and somebody else? Is it everybody? Is it everybody in the research group? Does we have to engage somebody from outside the research group? What would be the first important step in the process of trying this out? I think those 6 questions could be, I'm not sure, but I think they could be valuable to discuss in the different divisions and centers of the department. So thank you for listening.
I just really love the example the New Nordic diet. It's so different. So like usually whenever somebody wants something disseminated, they go to the application and go like, oh, we need a press release and maybe a 100 page. This was more like, yes, we're going to need a large oak tree and 4 caravans and plenty of Gouda cheese. And it's very different, but you can't really argue with the results. It worked very well. So I think that it emphasizes the importance of thinking in a bit less traditional way and probably in a different way from last time you did something if you want to succeed. So, and also it kind of merged dissemination and research very close to each other. Dissemination was also an important player in collecting data from the dates. So that's very interesting to me.
Yeah, John? Yeah, no, I agree with you on the point in terms of campaigning. But I think the same question as you answered is after your presentation, it's still not clear to me what the research was about.
No, that was not my focus here.
No, I know, but I mean, it's important that if you want to promote the research, this becomes a campaign.
Yeah.
That you get a good result on the campaign part. But I mean, if you want to make the research visible, it has to be clear that are you researching that this is actually a healthy way to go?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I assume that's what they did. But it's not clear. I mean, I think it had a great impact, but it's on the assumption that this is actually healthy for you.
Yeah. But there were also, I think, 100 researchers involved in this project, and they were like disseminating and explaining the results of their research, each of them. So that was just not my task today to tell about.
I think it also comes back to the objectives, because you said you told about some other things that they had achieved as well, in terms of increased student numbers, in terms of additional funding for follow-up activities or whatever. So I think, I mean, so if that has been part of the objective, you said first find
from
out
the beginning.
What are the objectives
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
If that's part of the objectives,
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
If the main objective is to really get these results out, I don't know, maybe it was overdoing it. I don't know. I mean, from what you showed, research, of course, is in there, but there was a lot of other stuff in there.
Yeah.
I think a very good agenda and very timely and everything, but it was more about other things, I think, than research communication. And that's exactly, I guess, also what we need to discuss. What is the purpose? Is it just to make sure that our latest findings are becoming more commonly known? Why?
Yeah.
What's the purpose?
Yeah. Or is it to get more people involved in the department and get the department more known and get the department to be like the center of some kind of discussions in Denmark, so that every time somebody wants to discuss something particular, then they would come here. Could that be a vision of the dissemination or the strategic communication for the department? So in 5 years, which agendas would be thicker than they are today, or would have a greater impact than they have today?
Yeah, I'm thinking when you plan these communication strategies, and your last example was quite good.
This one or
the first one? Sorry.
Okay.
What about resources for responding? because you can set aside resources for planning the campaign and leading a campaign and engaging a lot of stakeholders. But then they start reacting.
Yeah.
And then you also have to kind of plan for the response, because otherwise, if you're not able to respond properly to their request, you know, you will probably lose or get the opposite of what you want. So that's, I was thinking that somehow also have to be a part of the planning process, that we need to set resources aside to respond on these things. And if we make a big campaign involving a lot of stakeholders, we should be ready to respond with a lot of resources, because otherwise we could actually obtain the opposite of what we want.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. And what we did in this project was that we had some resources which were only on communications. There was one employee who was just employed to do the communication stuff, and there was also and the researchers had as part of their plan that they would get involved in other people, and that they would have the time to talk to different stakeholders. So that was part of the game from the beginning, and they didn't know who they would talk to and exactly at what time, but they know that they would get involved with somebody. So there was a time frame where they could do it.
Yeah, I think there's also need to consider the risk involved in communication, and especially when it goes to the daily media and the social media and so on. I mean, something that is, you think is obvious, the obvious truth can quickly be transformed into something completely different and put into some other context, and then you're really, somewhere where you don't want to be suddenly.
Yeah.
And what do you do? What resources can you then draw on? So in this case, the New Nordic Diet, it's not something that it's difficult to disagree about. We should eat more healthy, right? But when it comes to other issues like climate, energy, so on and so forth, there are a lot of opinions out there, and a lot of controversies.
That's
you can
true.
really get your hands burned, or whatever you call that. So how do you deal with the risks that involve in all this? And who do we go to if we get into trouble? Do we go to you, Jesper?
Yeah, go to me.
You go on holiday now.
I mean, the risk that somebody would disagree with you is not really a risk for the project. So it wouldn't be, for that project, it wouldn't be dangerous if somebody said, I don't agree with the vision. It would be dangerous if nobody cared about the project. That would be a main risk. But that different researchers came up with different opinions wasn't really a risk. That was all right. So I think part of the project, from my point of view, was to explain the researchers that when we are starting this project, there will come lots of different voices. You will hear lots of different arguments, and that's fine. If you see your enemy out there, invite him in. Discuss with him or make him part of the project. Don't try to.
I agree. I also think there are different facets to it, because you could also say that I think it wouldn't be a very smart strategy of a university to follow a Ryanair communication strategy going out there. It doesn't matter if I piss off people; they know about me afterwards, and they'll still buy my tickets.
Yeah.
Whereas we probably have a little other perception of what we should provide.
Exactly.
So there are some downsides in going out, and you have to react differently and with resources. So that needs to be kept in mind, I think. But on the other hand, I also agree that even if someone disagrees, it helps you being present again with your point. And if your point is setting an agenda, well, then you set an agenda, right? Somehow to that point. I'm afraid I have to stop here now. I would like to say two things. I think one thing is your presentation here should also be meant as triggering some thoughts, because I don't think that let's say the radical approach is fit for regardless what we do.
No.
But I think when for example, if you start a minor project, it wouldn't make sense.
No.
I mean, also 5% of a minor project will never be all the activities you performed here. But when we start some more significant initiatives, we may want to think a little bit more of, well, while we already put so many resources into that, could we take advantage of that in a more broader context instead of like treating it a little bit as a nuisance to say, well, we need to disseminate that, we need to engage people. And I think we have some topics which we deal with at the department which are not close to the public movement you're talking about here, but still where you define the target groups, in fact, could position ourselves even better than we are already positioned. And I think that's so the idea is a little bit, it's, you cannot take it one-to-one and say, well, they did it that way, New Nordic, I tried to New Nordic innovation, it didn't work very well. But some of the thoughts I think can be transferred into when we start a bigger project, which we believe in. And I think that's a possibility. The other thing, which I think we could take away from this presentation here is thinking a little bit broader about the means of what we can apply when we talk communication. There is a broad set of means, and you showed a broad set of means, and there are plenty more, right? And I think that's something we need to open up a little bit, so we maybe lose a little bit or step a little bit to the side of what you could call the traditional journalistic, altruistic approach. And those, in particular the latter topic, I would like to open up a little bit after the break, the cake, and a little coffee also. But so, thank you very much, and we have 1 minute break now. We'll extend it at 10 minutes something, okay? So a little to 2 o'clock, let's get back to here and then continue, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.